Anyone who is both over the age of 10 and has talked to me for more than 5 minutes knows that I fucking love Dungeons and Dragons. I've made at least, just the one video about it on this channel in particular, but on Twitter and Tumblr and other social media and various Discord servers, I am always talking about Dungeons and Dragons. I talk about it a lot. I play it a lot. Up until literally this past week, I was playing 3 D&D games per week. I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and I really like it. But sometimes I will go into various tags on Tumblr and stuff, and I'll see people talking about, like, their modded Dungeons and Dragons games. A lot of the time, it sounds, the way that they're doing these things, like, okay, so the reason I'm making this video in the first place was because I went into the Magical Girl tag on Tumblr, like you do. I'm in there pretty frequently, and there was somebody in there who was talking about how they had, like, a modded D&D game that they were playing with their friends, that was D&D, but it's Magical Girls. And I remember looking at that and just thinking, why not just play Glitter Hearts? It's a tabletop RPG specifically built to be for Magical Girl and, like, transforming hero style storytelling. You know, like, you can do it's built to be Magical Girls, but you could also do, like, a Super Sentai thing. You could do Captain Planet if you really wanted to. Like, it's meant to be that kind of a thing. But instead they wanted to do this. And, like, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But I think people need to play things that aren't Dungeons and Dragons. There are more tabletop RPGs out there that aren't D&D. And there's kind of a trend of people trying to force Dungeons and Dragons to be something that it isn't. This happens, I would say, with relative frequency. A lot of homebrew games for D&D are very much like D&D, but with, like, a new coat of paint. It's very, they'll be pretty similar to, like, canon D&D settings, for lack of a better term. And, like, that's fine. That's normal. Do that. But then you get people who are like, yeah, I want to run, like, a D&D campaign that, like, focuses on chivalry and, like, court stuff and whatever. And it's like, there are other TTRPGs you can play that have that. What is it that makes you want to use Dungeons and Dragons and only Dungeons and Dragons? I just don't really understand it. I think there's something to be said for some people being kind of intimidated by learning new TTRPG systems. And on the one hand, I do understand that, but on the other hand, like, can't relate. I literally, in, like, May-ish of last year, of 2020, what kept me sane a few months into quarantine was I was just constantly reading new RPG source books, because that was just something fun to do. I literally read the entire Glitter Hearts source book cover to cover when I first got it. Yeah, like, I love that stuff. So, like, on the one hand, yes, being intimidated by a new RPG system, I understand that. On the other hand, learn. Like, it's not that hard, y'all. If you can learn all the fucking bullshit that is Dungeons and Dragons, you can learn the Sentinel Comics RPG, you know? Like, you can learn these things. They're not that hard to learn. And in fact, a lot of them are easier to learn than Dungeons and Dragons, and they don't come with all the baggage that Dungeons and Dragons has. The one exception to that I personally have experience with is Pathfinder. I did not enjoy Pathfinder First Edition. The couple of times I tried playing it, I am starting a Pathfinder Second Edition game coming up, and I think that'll be good. It's with the D&D group that I played Marlena with, so I trust them. I think it'll be a good time. The DM is really excited, and having gone over all the stuff, I think I understand Pathfinder 2nd Ed better than I did 1st Ed. Someday I'll tell y'all the story of the first time I played Pathfinder 1st Edition. It was not fun. I did not have a good time. There's nothing, like I say, there's nothing inherently wrong with modding Dungeons & Dragons, but what is it that draws you to Dungeons & Dragons specifically, rather than seeking out a new RPG system that is more in line with the kind of game that you want to play? Like, if you want to play, I've seen people like, oh yeah, we're gonna play like a D&D, but it's superheroes. Play Masks? Play the Sentinel Comics RPG? That's just 2 off the top of my head that I know, and I don't know all that many RPG systems. But I know 2 for superheroes. Why are you modding Dungeons & Dragons? It's not great for modding. It's really not. It's got a very specific world, and like really specific like gods and like characters and races and setup and stuff. Is it like the fantasy element? Like, if you want to do like superheroes but like in high fantasy, because that's not what I usually see people say. They usually say, oh yeah, it's like a modern setting and whatever for D&D, but with superheroes, but we're gonna use the D&D system. And it's like, no, don't do that. Use other things. Play other TTRPGs. Like I say, I think there are some people who are straight up afraid of learning a new system. And again, on the one hand, I can understand that. But on the other hand, like, okay, so I'm going to talk real fast about 2 different experiences I had with introducing somebody to a different system. Okay, so the one time I was with a group that I play D&D with IRL, and one of our players was going to be away for a couple of weeks. And so we said, oh hey, wouldn't it be fun if just for that time we do like a little one-shot thing using a different system. And so for the first week we built characters for the Sentinel Comics RPG, and then the second week we ran I can't remember which one-shot it was. I think it was Daybreak. I do not remember. No, that's the team. Daybreak is the team. I don't remember what one-shot it was, but it was a one-shot. And everyone kinda was kinda hesitant about it. Like, no one was super into it. On the other hand, in the game that I play Marlena with, we have our big game that finally ended when I talked about the one I talked about in the my Marlena video. But our big game finally ended, and that's what we're replacing with Pathfinder 2nd Ed. And we've discussed playing like other games in that same setting, but in different like time periods. Like, we were looking for something that we could do like just like a couple of months of like, all right, we're gonna play in this same setting, but now it's set in like the Regency era, and okay, now we're gonna play in one that's set in like the modern time. We're gonna play Monster of the Week. Now we're gonna do like a science fantasy one, and we're gonna do Starfinder. Like, the same setting but in different time periods and with different systems. And everyone was really excited to check out these different systems and learn these different systems and stuff, and it was awesome. Hell, one of the players in that game I met through a Monster of the Week game that I was running that didn't pan out, but like I met her through that. And yeah, like, there are so many other RPG systems out there, and I feel like if you're just stuck on Dungeons and Dragons and like, okay, we're gonna play a new RPG, we're gonna use Dungeons and Dragons and we're just gonna change the hell out of it. Is it the classes? Is it the races? I don't know what it is that makes people think, yes, Dungeons and Dragons is the best thing to use for this. Like I say, There's a whole bunch. I am looking right now. I can see, like, the Sentinel Comics RPG core rulebook is on my shelf right now, next to my various and sundry D&D books. Like, get that. Play superheroes. Like, yes, Sentinel Comics also has a very specific setting, but like D&D, you can just homebrew it. Throw out all of the canon lore and do whatever you want. Or you can use, the canon lore. You can play Monster of the Week and have your characters like, okay, every session or whatever, we're out looking for more bad guys to fight. Like, there's a different monster every time, and we have to go deal with this threat every week. You can have like a Call of Cthulhu game where it's like, yeah, there's always some kind of weird madness thing happening. And now our players are going to go deal with that. You can have a Glitter Hearts campaign where it's just like, okay, we're playing as we're all going to be magical girls, and we're going to transform, and we're going to fight and save the day, and we have a cool little mascot character, and all this kind of stuff. I want to play Glitter Hearts so bad, you guys. Like, I think the only time that I've seen, like, a modded game where it's just like, okay, we're going to add an extra rule or whatever to change it slightly, where that kind of made sense was, there's a actual play stream on YouTube that I watch sometimes called Super Idols, which is really cool. And they use the Masks system, but it's a magical girl game. And, like, I think that's fine because Masks is inherently built around superheroes, and magical girls are essentially a subgenre of superheroes, and they just added like one extra rule about transforming, and that's it. Nothing else changed. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, that makes sense to me. But changing the fundamentals of how the entire game works is like, just play a different game. It doesn't have to be D&D. In fact, it shouldn't be D&D. Play other things. I'm once again asking for you to play other things that aren't Dungeons and Dragons, because I'm so tired of, like, going into tags and seeing people play, yeah, we're gonna just play this completely different thing that's not D&D, but we're gonna say it's magical D&D or whatever. And it's like, Glitter Hearts is right there. Y'all, there's so much cool character customization and stuff for that. Go play that. Go play the Sentinel Comics RPG. Stan the SCRPG. Play that. Like, I don't mean to be ranty. I'm very ranty today. But it just annoys me a little bit, because there are so many other good ones out there that aren't getting as much love as Dungeons and Dragons. And it's like, let's see some other stuff. Hell, even with like actual play podcasts, I don't really listen to much in the way of D&D ones anymore. It's mostly like Monster of the Week and stuff. If anyone knows any good Glitter Hearts actual play podcasts, please let me know, because I am dying for more Glitter Hearts content. But yeah, anyways, stan the SCRPG. Please stop modding Dungeons and Dragons. I am once again asking, please.